The Americans had a different kind of purpose for the Philippines. They wanted to educate the Philippines. They wanted the Philippines to be a show window of democracy in Southeast Asia.
On July 1st, 1901, the Americans established a civil government in the Philippines. With fighting still raging in the countryside, American officials used the policy of attraction to keep Filipinos from joining the insurrectos. One way they did this was to give the Filipinos what many had wanted under the Spanish: education. An educated citizenry, a hallmark of American democracy, was necessary if the Filipinos were indeed to become a self-governing nation. Most Americans, however, comforted themselves believing that their little brown brothers were too inferior to acquire independence anytime soon.
But I read this book about brown brothers, about the book entitled Brown Brothers, that the Americans, yes, Americans helped the Filipinos, but they said this book has been written by the Americans, American author. So all those that had been written are all telling good things about the Americans and what they did good to the Filipinos.
Men and women from all walks of life in the United States came to set up schools all over the archipelago. Many brought with them their experiences teaching on American Indian reservations. Others consulted with Booker T. Washington and those who championed industrial education as being better suited to those of darker races. Regardless of American motivations, the Filipinos eagerly welcomed education. Literacy rates increased from 20% in 1901 to 50% in 1941.
They refused to learn the Spanish language. In fact, they learned English better. They wanted English better. In fact, the Philippines is the third largest speaking country, English-speaking country in the world. First is England, U.S., Philippines, then India.
In addition to setting up secular public schools, the Americans built roads, introduced extensive radio and telegraph communication, founded hospitals, and invested in Philippine industries. Despite the improvements American officials could proudly point to as evidence of their benevolence, these investments kept the Philippines oriented toward the United States. Throughout the American period, the constant thorn in the side of the colonial government was the Filipino demand for independence.
You know, from 1898 to 1945, we were part of America, just like Puerto Rico right now. You know, and then the politician kept fighting against the American system, I guess, because they didn't really like it. He said because they wanna have a full membership. You know, like full membership means the privileges that Virginia or a regular state enjoy. You know, we didn't have that in the Philippines. We were just corporate member. They call it corporate member. So I said, well, if you cannot give us all the benefit, then we would rather have a republic. So later on, they were giving it to them, you know. So we become Philippines.
Filipino politicians often use the platform of nationalism to secure greater concessions from the United States. Publicly, they would support independence, but then privately urge Americans to give them greater power or economic assistance.
Because they are in a hurry to be ruling to rule the country by themselves. Because President Quezon said he rather wants to see the Filipinos run the government like hell than the Americans run the Philippines like heaven. And now it was really run hell like hell. So the politicians ran the government like hell.
In 1934, the Tidings-McDuffie Act gave the Philippines Commonwealth status and promised the country independence in 10 years. This act was due partly to Filipino nationalists and partly due to the effects of the Great Depression and growing Japanese power. With the poor state of the American economy, American businesses wanted Filipino migrant workers and Filipino products out of the country so as not to provide competition. With the Japanese empire expanding, the United States could be dragged into a Pacific War to protect the archipelago.
Well, the Americans really, they're the one who established the system of education. And for me, I mean, my husband and I really said, it was a mistake that they wanted independence. They should have just, we should have been one of the, like Hawaii and all those places and Guam. I think they made a mistake of getting independence because everybody wants to come here. If they didn't do that, they could come anytime. I think that was a mistake they did. They just, I guess, they have been trying to get their independence from the Spaniards for so long that they just wanted to do it. They didn't realize that the Americans were really good. So, I think that's the mistake they made. I really felt, my husband and I both feel the way. They should have not gotten their independence, but well, sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you don't really know what is good. Then, years afterwards, you realize that that's a mistake. It's like in our life.
The Americans established the foundation for the infrastructure and education that exist in the Philippines today. They also created a ready market for American goods as American values and American consumerism was taught in schools across the country. But the Philippine national consciousness also grew, and Filipinos worked together to define what was uniquely their own.